Well, welcome everyone. This is another wonderful opportunity for us to have a beautiful art salon. And tonight it's very exciting and we're going to have a very exciting and inspiring art salon featuring three fabulous artists at different stages in their art careers to share compelling stories and images and all stemming from their particular artist lives. We'll be inspired, awed, and deeply moved by the work we see tonight. Each artist will present for about 20 minutes. And after each presentation, there will be time for us viewers to respond and ask questions. So please turn off your audio microphones during each presentation to avoid any ambient interferences with the artists when they're presenting. And then the mics can come back on at the end of each speaker. So tonight's lineup, we will start with Wendy Aikin, followed by Arleene Correa Valencia, and concluding with Lynda Watson. So if you're ready, Wendy, I'm very happy to introduce first Wendy Aikin. Wendy is a painter, an assemblage and mixed media artist, and a collector of curious objects. In her paintings, Wendy uses the ancient medium of encaustic wax because of its seductive luminosity and a mysterious nature, which often half reveals hidden messages secreted into the layers of the thin pigmented wax. The love of mystery is also evident when Wendy describes herself as a Victorian throwback, gathering oddities for her personal assemblage cabinets of curiosity. Throughout the range of her art practice, Wendy consistently expresses a gravitation for the unusual and a love of combining materials, each finished piece having a compelling story to tell. So it's with great pleasure I'm introducing Wendy Aikin. Here you go, Wendy. Thank you.
Before I start, I want to thank our host, Rosie Penhallow and Pajaro Valley Arts for inviting us to share our work and our stories with you. I feel honored to be among the accomplished artists that are presenting tonight. So thank you, Rosie, and thank you, PVA, for the opportunity. This is my crazy fun family. Dad was a creator of new technology during the boom in the Silicon Valley. Mom, a former figure skater and patent researcher turned baby factory, popped out 4 of us. At 70, she decided to make art. She had a ball working in her glass studio with her kids, Judy and Chris. And here they are along with brother Chris. Well, and here they are along with brother Chris. Can you tell I'm reading from a script? Judy's an accomplished artist and community art activist. Kelly is a successful real estate developer and race car driver who cooks a mean lamb chop. And Chris is a retired fire captain who currently designs and builds cars. This project took him 10 years. This is my husband, Roger, showing off one of his pond plants, and that's mini me in the photo next to him. Roger is our tireless art hauler and wine pouring supporter of everything that happens in the studio. And these are our kids, Betsy, Ruth, and David, who came to us from Seoul, Korea in 1989. Betsy's an interpreter in Seoul, David's a DC police officer, and Ruth is currently with an undisclosed agency in Washington, DC. This photo is a great representation of all the different spaces I occupy and have occupied. My first big girl job was with Bank of America as a clerk. Many years later, I ended up doing mergers and acquisitions for an independent bank. During those years, I followed my passion for ice skating, which provided a creative outlet. As time progressed, the craziness of the banking world led me to more meaningful work at a homeless shelter and recovery center in San Jose. This is still work that I do in Bend, Oregon, where I live part-time. Other lives have included interior design work and home staging. When I was in the 6th grade, I entered a painting contest. Although I won second prize, you can see that there was little chance that I'd take the art world by a storm, thus banking. Fast forward 25 years to a project with friends and family. We entered a county fair scarecrow making contest. There were vast amounts of wine consumed, and although we took first place, you can see that I hadn't advanced much since the 6th grade. In my mid-40s, Judy rescued me out of a pit of anxiety and depression, dragging me to a class at UC Santa Cruz. It was my first semi-serious venture into the art world. Our mission was to build shrines. While smudging sage and waving owl wings, all of which were new experiences for a straight-laced banker and shelter worker, I watched women freely express themselves through poetry and shrine building. My piece was autobiographical, and Judy, my teacher, and my fellow students said it was art. A few months later, my husband was recalled to the military at about the same time our 3 kids were off to college. I lived and traveled in Italy for close to 3 years and came home a changed person with expanded views of the world and of myself. This is Villa Gonzaga, where we lived in Vicenza, Italy. It had outbuildings packed with treasures that hadn't been cleaned out in the last 200 years. I volunteered to organize it for the owner. Every day I would set out piles of stuff for the Contessa to come and look at. Some went to museums, some items were sold, and I kept the so-called trash for myself. I rescued thousands of letters and documents dating back to the early 1800s that the Contessa had been using to start her daily fires with. Working with these old papers and documents inspired my love of paper and collage. The following slides are some of my newer works. This is Love is Always the Answer. It's 12 by 24. Pants on Fire, 12 by 24. Human Nature, 11 by 17. And Cracked, 24 by 24. Early last year, we attended the Yuma Art Symposium. One of the events was a pin exchange. I made 30 individual collaged pins using old library due date cards, photos, and transfers. Even when traveling, I collect receipts, tickets, and scraps of paper that I collage with every day. By the end of the trip, the book of memories is complete. I paste and tape, draw and weave, and include postcards to help me remember a place and time. The journals are easily identified on the shelf by the kitschy mementos that dangle from each book. Although I normally work alone, I occasionally get the opportunity to work collaboratively with friends like Daniela Wolf and Sister Judy. In 2019, Judy and I worked on Sisters cut from the same cloth. We used old photos, transfers, sewing patterns, thread, and pins. The completed piece was shown at the Blitzer Gallery. This is Measure of a Man by Judy and myself, completed in 2014. It measures 62 inches by 78 inches and is mixed media on canvas. This is Excess Baggage, a collaboration between Judy, Daniela Wolf, and myself. It measures 6 foot by 12 foot and is encaustic on paper. And here's a detail of the wax paper bags filled with small collages and monoprints. This is the family room, an installation shown at PVA and the Bedford Gallery. And the window images in the back are by Janet Fine. The work morphed into waxy buildup for another show and is about 90% beeswax. For the last 8 years, I've been working on assemblages. Up until someone compared my work to Joseph Cornell's, I didn't really think of my work as art or myself as an artist. The following series is called On Tour. Each box measures approximately 18 inches by 30 inches. The work contains imagined collections gathered by fictional characters. This is Chip Tyler, mechanic and engineer, Youngstown, Ohio, completed in 2014. This is Dorian Blue, inventor, paint by number postcards, I Watch Washington, 2013. Josephine Lestrange, collector of reliquaries, Paris, Rome, and Perth, completed in 2013. Miss Annie McGuffey, teacher, Spring Valley Science School, San Francisco, California, 2018. Paul Diner, photographer and inventor, San Francisco, California, completed in 2013. Babs Mayfield, Biscuit the Terrier, and Bernie Sorensen, amateur birdwatchers, Buck Hollow, Utah, 2013. Sally Brown, test kitchen cook, Chicago, Illinois, 2020. Tim LaFrench, Toy Box Memories, Sun City, Florida, 2020. Dorothy Solomon, curator, New York Natural History Museum, New York, New York, 2014. Cabinet number 4, collected 1851, Paolo Emanuele Greppi, completed in 2014. Before I start a box, I look for inspirational photos or items that will create or add to one of my characters' stories. Along with my shopping assistants and partners in crime, we look in specialty stores, galleries and gallery shops, flea markets and antique stores, museums and museum shops, street markets and garage sales. Many items that I use in my work have been gifts. These are some of the quirky things I've received recently from family and friends. When I'm not collecting, I'm looking at books or magazines, and I'm a Pinterest junkie and virtual hoarder with 130 boards and 34,000 posts. For the On Tour series, I started collecting old painters' boxes. They are well loved and come with a built-in history. As I said before, the stories told in the boxes are usually inspired by a vintage photograph, something with a compelling image. One of my most exciting photos was of a man with a glass eye. I was able to source eyes from Germany and built a wonderful collection. Some would say really creepy. Some of the eyes are in my box called Dr. Lee's Optical Shop, and this was completed in 2015. Because my collections are fairly substantial, I've had to find ways to stay organized. As I collect items for a particular assemblage, they're placed on a shelf or in a container until the collection is big enough to warrant its own labeled bin. This way, things don't get misplaced or lost. Here's how a box comes together. This photograph inspired the collection and the story. Next came finding items that fit in a box that's only 1.5 inches deep. Once gathered, the contents are positioned to see what works together. Pieces that don't fit are altered. The background is glued in and items are attached using epoxy, wire, brads, and screws. This is the completed box. It's titled Dr. Nolan Dimitri, Chemist and Physician, Blue Sky, Idaho, 2016. The next box was inspired by the Count who owned the villa where we lived. He was a politician and amateur artist. I never found any of his paintings, but I rescued many of his sketchbooks and art supplies. To create the box, first the background of Italian papers was glued in, then collected items were checked for proper fit. Fasteners were attached and tested. And once one side of the box is finished, work can start on the other side. Here it is completed. I'd like to think that Count Gonzaga would get a kick out of his throwaways being considered art. The title of this piece is Don Carlos Gonzaga, Artist, Venice, Italy, and it was completed in 2016. All magical art making and frivolity happens in Corralitos, where Judy and I share a studio. It has a garden and a 2,000 square foot Butler building where we're celebrating our 20th year. The studio is also the former home of Waxworks West, where Daniela Wolf, Judy, and I taught painting with encaustic for almost 10 years. We have an upstairs workspace. Downstairs, we have a place to rest our bones, show our work, and the work of friends. In 2014, Judy created a workspace for me downstairs that measures 100 square feet. This antique cabinet holds most of my collections, waiting for boxes. The custom shelves in the back hold 60 shoe boxes and 8 large bins. My workbench is made out of old scaffolding and is deep enough to accommodate storage underneath. In 2018, Rose Sellery invited me to participate in her show, Museum of Curious Perceptions, at the Pajaro Valley Arts Gallery. I put together an installation incorporating my boxes and other created and found objects to tell the story of a missing museum curator. This was the first time that the On Tour series was shown together as an environmental grouping. Over the period of a year, I made over 100 curiosities to show alongside the On Tour boxes. This was a series called Bone Babies. These are from the series Specimens. Also from the Specimen series, these include encaustic and mixed media. When the show was over, my character had become so real to me that I couldn't bear to pack away his life in a box. So we carved out a 6-foot by 9-foot space downstairs and moved his office into our studio. You can see the room divided by bookshelves down the middle. The space houses the completed box from the On Tour series and all of the curiosities that were made for the show. The collection has continued to grow and change through the years. Here's a view into the area as it looks today. And these are some close-ups. And now for a short commercial break. Please don't miss the takeaway show at Pajaro Valley Arts. Every piece is priced at $300 or less and can be taken away when you buy it. Here's me and my mess making work for it. The show closes on May 23rd, so make an appointment online at pvarts.org and support the gallery and our local artists. Thank you to Daniela Wolf, my waxy co-conspirator and fellow traveler, Suze Weinberg, friend and mentor, and all the teachers, students, and fellow artists who've inspired my journey. R.R. Jones, thank you for photographing my work with skill and patience. You make me look like I know what I'm doing. And to Judy Stabile, my sister and best friend, she's always been there to teach, help, and encourage me. She's pushed and prodded me into doing what is uncomfortable, always telling me that I'm an artist, even when I don't believe it about myself. Thank you. That's it. Thanks for spending virtual time with me in my weird world.
Wendy, that was very fascinating. I would like to spend, I don't know, minutes and minutes and minutes with each piece, just absorbing what is in each of those boxes. And it's wonderful. I'm just impressed by the multitude of collecting you've done. And how beautifully you put the stories together.
Thank you.
So thank you. That was really fascinating. It's wonderful to see the breadth and depth of what you've been up to.
Thanks.
Brava, brava.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for sharing that. That was incredible. You are an incredible artist and you have a lot going for you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I'm so happy I got to join. Yes. I'll thank Roger as well. Thank you.
Wendy.
Wendy's here too.
We know, Jane.
Well, I have a sister too, and people do that. Anyhow, Wendy, do you ever teach?
When we were teaching, when we had Waxworks, I did teach a couple of assemblage classes, but it's really a tricky class to teach. A lot of fun. Oops, I think you're frozen, Jane.
A big mess.
Yep, Jane's gone.
Oh,
Or are we gone?
Or maybe we're gone.
Oh, you're there.
oh, you're there.
Okay.
Jane is frozen.
Yeah.
Any more questions or comments for Wendy?
I don't know. This is Kelly Heil. Can she hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Kelly.
Okay.
This is my brother.
Okay, so here's what I wanted. I just sent this text to my sister, and I'm going to try and get through this without crying.
Oh,
Oh,
That was so amazing. I'm so thrilled to have heard the words you chose to describe your journey. So proud of you. Love you even more if that's possible. Good on you, Wendy and Judy.
Oh,
Now we're all crying.
I know.
That was amazing.
We have so much work. Incredible.
it was truly
Oh,
amazing.
hello.
Wow.
Hello from Chicago. Margan Bill here saying it's a beautiful display. You are an artist.
Bill. Hi, Margie.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for taking time to share that with everybody. We're just so grateful to have you in our lives and so honored that you consider us friends, and you're just so talented and so amazing.
An inspiration.
You are truly, and your art is incredible and wonderful and wild and creepy, just the way we love it.
Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, John.
Really, Wendy, amazing, amazing, amazing. You always totally astonish me. And I want to cry too, and I don't even know why. Just the journey too was fascinating because I didn't know all that stuff about you and the evolution. Oh my God. And your work is so amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Hi, Mom. It's Ruth. It's your first eldest daughter, the one that caused the most problem, right? And that's why you had to delve into the world of art. Seriously, I know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the entire story. And I know how much all those boxes mean to you. And I know what you desire when this whole thing is over. So I'll keep that in mind. I love you, Mama.
I love you too, sweetie.
Well, Wendy, thank you so much. It was quite wonderful. And you are so committed, and it's all right there. And it would be wonderful just to take the tour in person with you.
Well, you can come anytime.
I would love that. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rosie.
So now we have our next wonderful artist, which is, we're quite honored to bring Arlene Correa Valencia into the fold. Arlene lives and works in Napa, California. We were first introduced to her work when she exhibited at the PVA Gallery in the Campesino exhibit, and also with her Emmy Award-winning film entry, Represent, in the Watsonville Film Festival. Arlene is a Mexican painter and a community-oriented artist. She arrived in the US with her family at age 3. She's a DACA recipient and holds a BFA and MFA from the California College of the Arts. Her paintings include intimate portraits of migrant farm workers, and she continues her art through community activism, focusing on the plight and invisibility of that migrant community. She has a fascinating story and a fascinating body of work to show us. So welcome, Arlene. It's wonderful to have you.
It's such an honor to be here. I am so happy to learn about Wendy and to be amongst all of you. It's just like really great to learn about another artist's journey, and to also know that as artists, we have different avenues of jumping into this career, right? And it's clearly never too late. I'm young, and so I started making art at a really young age, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. But first, I'm going to play this video for all of you. And this is the video that won an Emmy based off my work. So we'll take a few minutes to watch this, and then you'll see me back here.
Most of my work comes from thinking about my position in this country as an undocumented person, and these labels that define who I am legally in this country and illegally, and where I'm allowed to go and where I'm not allowed to go. I'm also really interested in what it means to grow up and to live in Napa, a wine country that is so rich and full of wealth, but also is home to some of the most cruel conditions for human beings and the labor industry. My name is Arleene Correa Valencia, and I was born in Arteaga, Michoacan, in Mexico. And I came to the United States when I was 3 in 1997. There's definitely a lot of shame that comes with being undocumented, especially when you're younger. Growing up in the Valley, you know, you see limos driving by with people that are going wine tasting, and meanwhile, I was worried and my family was worried that if we go to the grocery store, there might be like an ICE raid. But it wasn't something that I allowed to stop me from pursuing a higher education.
This one's a lot bigger.
When my family came to California, my mom had an aunt in Napa, so we came here. More families started coming up. It was such a tight living situation that at one point there was 16 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment. My father worked painting houses, and my mom was a house cleaner. And then in 2001, they were able to buy their first home. And we moved 15 minutes away, just on the outskirts. But growing up here, you know, we were amongst all the other Latino families. The first time I had an article written on my work and me, my dad, he was like, why would you want to talk about these things? It's going to put you in danger. And then I sat down and I talked to him and I was like, Dad, look, listen, a lot of the people talking about this haven't necessarily really lived it. I have to try to show people what it's like. And I think that's when he really understood. Me llamo Arlene. ¿Usted? Humberto. Mucho gusto. ¿De dónde es usted?
Yo soy del estado de Oaxaca.
De Oaxaca. My life has always been this in-between, right? Where I had uncles and family members that harvest the grapes, but I also have friends that invite me out to go wine tasting. So when I go out and I do my research and I talk to people, I try to make sure that they know that I don't feel like I'm better than them, and that, you know, that I would never want to belittle them or use them. Showing them that I speak their language is a way to connect. It's a way to break that ice and to really bond and to allow them to trust me and to show them that I can be trusted. Yo soy de Michoacán. Me interesa enseñarle a la gente en el mundo del arte en nuestro trabajo y nuestra posición en el valle. Ojalá puedo pintarlo si está bien. Yeah. I want to commemorate these moments and to honor them and say, this was a beautiful moment where I saw that my community was reflecting this resilience, extreme work ethic, this need to survive.
Fires are burning in Sonoma and Napa counties.
Thousands of residents have been forced to flee.
At least 10 people dead, 100 people missing.
One of the most severe disasters in decades.
The fires, October 2017, it was such a surreal experience. All the cars were rushing to the gas station. People were getting out. It was the peak of harvest season. I looked outside and people were still working, and I was like, hold on, you know, if we're not advised to even be outside to breathe the air, these people should not be harvesting. Automatically, the artist mode in me turned on. And to really honor that sacrifice. For them, if they didn't work, they couldn't feed their families, couldn't pay rent. So I painted portraits of people doing their job, and they're all at night. I really wanted to play with this idea of finding your way through the painting in this moment of darkness. Oh, sí, ya, pero está bien. No, pero se los podemos quitárselas, ¿no? My dad, he comes into my work and everything I do. He's the reason why I paint. When he was younger, he had a lot of dreams of being an artist. And as soon as, he had us and his children, he realized that his life goal was no longer to fulfill his dreams, but to make sure that we never had to step down from ours. His knowledge of color and work with wood and textures, it really informs a lot of my work and what I do. When the idea of painting on pallets came to me, thinking about manufacturing goods and what it means to import and export goods and the freedom that goods have versus the freedom that I have in this country. I consulted my dad, and so now we've developed, this technique of working the palette where I'm able to paint it and it's able to have a longer life and transform this thing that's literally found in the streets into a piece of art. And that's really how I see our relationship and, our family. I believe that we transform ourselves from being considered nothing to being something. I'm really honored to be here and to be a part of this show and very proud to represent both my family and my culture. I'm really excited to be able to bring a brown face to these galleries when my work gets to actually exist in places that are beyond the confinements of the undocumented experience.
All right. Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm going to go ahead and start my presentation. I love that video because it really explains what my practice is wholeheartedly about. And it talks about my family.
Okay, here it is again.
In a way that I sometimes struggle to talk about when I'm presenting just because it's so emotional for me. So like I mentioned in the video, I was born in Mexico in Michoacan, and I came to this country illegally, and I'm now what is considered a dreamer. I'm still living under this work permit that was established by Obama. And it's really what gave me, my in into not only education, but the art world that has allowed me the freedom to travel the States. And it's the reason why I can continue doing what I do. But I do live in this limbo of never knowing if my DACA permit will be taken away from me or if I will be able to renew. So it's something that I struggle with daily. But I've never, like I said, I've never allowed it to stop what I'm doing in the practice that I'm holding. Here in front of you is a few words that I like to think about or that I like to reference in terms of when, how I want to talk about my practice and the work that I make. I have this really interesting ritual where I write 5 words to summarize my day. So if any of you are interested in putting language to your thoughts or your creative self, it's something that I advise all my students to do is write down 5 words every day, 3 words. It could be, it could be 3 words. And after 30 days, you have a list of all this language that informs your life and the colors that you're seeing and the things you're thinking about. I love this practice only because as a Spanish speaker, it really allows me to have the language to talk to all of you and to be able to explain my work. So that series in the video that we started with is a series that I started in 2017 when the first wave of really harsh fires hit Napa. It's called En Tiempos de Crisis, in times of crises. And like it was talked about in the video, I took it upon myself to document all of these people that were working through these really tough times and breathing these conditions of air that were not okay for them. Since then, we've seen an influx in respiratory health conditions with the undocumented and Latinx community here in Napa. And so there's actually numbers showing that people have been suffering health problems due to the fact that they were working through these fires in 2017. I also recently saw that there was an article where the Napa Valley Register tried to say that these conditions and these people were never actually harvesting during the fires. And somebody like in the comments was like, Arleene Correa Valencia made work about this. She documented this. There's no way that it didn't happen. And so that's where I see art being like super important, and, you know, being a tool of our voices and our history, because as people of color, we live under this constant battle of being erased and our stories being taken away from us. And I think as an undocumented person of color, it is my responsibility to make sure that my people and my family and my parents are not erased. And that means a lot to me. So that's that painting series. I've continued to that series on every single year since 2017, and it's changed in different ways. The paintings are now smaller because I wanted to make them more intimate, but I wanted to show you all this other series that it's called Somos Visibles, We Are Not Invisible. And it's a collaboration between my friend and I. Her name is Teresa Fernandez. She is an amazing artist here in San Francisco. And I'm talking about being undocumented, about these labels that are put on us. And I was on Instagram one day really frustrated because if we look at the media, we see all these labels, you know, all of these terms that are being used to refer to undocumented people like myself, like, you know, saying that we're voiceless, that we are invisible, that we are living in the shadows. And so I wrote this statement, and I quickly just like expressed how frustrated I was because we are not voiceless, right? We don't need people to speak for us. We have a voice and we can speak for ourselves most of the time, but it's frustrating that people choose to speak for us, or they choose to document our story in their own way. And we're never really given that platform. So this is something I put on social media. And I'm very like outspoken and stubborn. And so Ana Teresa responded to that and said to me, you know, I have to take that in, and I want to do something with you to share your voice with people. So she actually approached me and said, I want to put your voice on a hoodie. What would your hoodie say? And so I was thinking about my paintings, and I was like, oh, well, my hoodie has to be neon orange because these are the people that I paint. And so I brought her this neon yellow hoodie, and I said, my hoodie has to say we are not invisible, because I'm tired of being invisible, or I'm tired of people thinking I'm invisible. And so she embroidered it on, but then we quickly realized that there was actually something greater that was happening here. And we were really interested in tapping into the labor industry and thinking about how we can use these reflective materials to create a hoodie that was more appropriate. So we created the We Are Not Invisible, Somos Visibles. In Spanish, it's we are visible. So there's a little bit of a language play there. And we created this hoodie. And the moment that it was said and done, I said to Ana, I looked at her and I said, you know, this hoodie is so powerful. We can change the world with this hoodie. I just don't know how yet. And sure enough, she had an idea, and it's reflective. So it like reflects in the darkness, and it's really cool. It's my favorite thing I've ever done. And so she said, you know, there's a census project coming. This was last year in 2020. And I'm being asked to create something. I would love if we could push this hoodie for the census. So we pitched the hoodie to YBCA and Levi's, and we ended up getting sponsorship by Levi's. And YBCA jumped on board as well. That's the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts in San Francisco. And we were able to take this hoodie out and like single-handedly on our iPads and cell phones, like sign people up for the census. And so our goal here, we also created t-shirts, which is what's in front of you that you see. Our goal here was to target not only undocumented people, but communities of color that are underrepresented in the census. And so I'm sure, and I hope that you're all familiar with the census, which comes around every 10 years. And if we are not counted in the census, our communities lack funding. It's about $20,000 per person, depending on the county. And so, you know, when we look at our education system and we look at why schools are underfunded and why parks are not as nice as the white parks, and why we don't have the same resources, it's because we're not counting ourselves in the census. And so every 10 years, we're missing on, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for our community. So Ana and I took it upon ourselves to be the people out there who were like educating every single person. And it, you know, we're bilingual, so we were able to reach so many people. And in return, we offered them a hoodie or a t-shirt. And we told them about this statement and what the statement means to me in terms of not allowing visibility to be shameful, and really embracing visibility as a superpower. Because I think as undocumented people, we have the superpower to be visible and to be invisible. And it was really beautiful to be able to share that. So we took it to the mission in San Francisco, and then we went to the Bayview in San Francisco. And we were really, like, honestly trying our hardest to not only target Latinos, but also African Americans, because they're also underrepresented. I think we did an amazing job of trying to get as many people as possible counted. And then to me, it was like, okay, how do I bring this back to the vineyards? How do I get back to my family? How do I bring it back to Napa? And Anna was incredible, and she jumped on board. I'll share this video. And this is one of the nights when we decided to go out into the vineyards. And this project was, or this activation was a little bit different in the sense that when we were out in the streets, we didn't know people's status, but when we're out in the vineyards, we're more knowledgeable, because we know that most of the people out in the vineyards are undocumented, and they're more vulnerable. So when we were out here, we decided we would not sign people up for the census, but instead we would educate them about the census and let them decide whether or not they wanted to go home and sign up for it. And we still gifted them the hoodies as a sort of a seed to be able to plant something in them, or to have them feel like they were being seen. And this was during harvest last year while there were still fires happening. And so that whole idea of me capturing and recording and documenting agricultural workers during a time of crisis has not stopped at all. But it just was embraced with this hoodie. And so it was really beautiful to see the paintings turn into a physical object, turn into a community activation where I was actually able to make a change. That we then took the hoodies to the local Mexican market, and we were able to target more families instead of single individuals. I can't even tell you how many people we signed up for the census this day, because it was like, I mean, if any of you are Latinx or know any Latin families, we're huge. And we were just like families of 10, families of 8, families of 9. It was incredible. And that is just like hundreds of thousands of dollars going into our community. The man on the right here, it was his first time signing up for the census, and he was 80 something years old and had been in this country most of his life. And so to see that impact that art can have is just phenomenal and super, like, as an artist, there's nothing greater than that. And there really is, like, I love my work in galleries, I love my work in exhibitions, but there's nothing more powerful than knowing that you're making a difference in the community. We then took these hoodies. So we're like trying to stretch this project as much as possible. We then took the hoodies and made them into the shirts, which is the slide that you saw earlier. And I was sitting one day having lunch with my husband in Napa when I looked across the street and I saw this field of boys playing soccer. And I said to my husband, wouldn't it be beautiful if we had a soccer team and we had different colors and the way that they would mix with these t-shirts, and to be able to reach teenagers and to tell them, that they are powerful, that they are not invisible, that they have visibility, and that they are our future. And so I pitched this to Anna, and Anna jumped on board right away, as she always does. And we were able to bring the t-shirts with like funding from another sponsor, to this group of soccer girls that were playing in San Bruno. And I had my vision come to life. I watched these girls play soccer. We talked to them about, the power that they hold for the next census, because in 10 years, it will be their responsibility to sign up for the census. And also just like trying to inspire them to follow their dreams and to really not allow their status or their financial status to be what stops them from being an artist or from being anything that they want to be. And then finally, my team surprised me with this billboard that was in San Francisco. And at the last push for the census, because of COVID, President Trump was trying to cut the deadline for the census in an effort to erase us, right? In an effort to not count us as, people of color. And so my team created this billboard and put this picture of me up there. And I am not a person who likes to be on a billboard or be seen in that way, but it was so cool to be able to see this project really take shape and inform so many different parts of our lives. I'm really proud of this billboard because I really believe in what I do, and I really believe in visibility when it comes to my community. And I don't think that there's anything greater in life than being able to share a moment where I can teach people how to be vulnerable, how to be seen, and how to not be ashamed of where we come from, regardless of our status. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Wow. It's such an honor to have you here and to hear your voice and your dedication and your huge heart and your bravery. And thank you. Truly. You're a beautiful visual artist, but and your voice is so important. And you look like you're young. You've got a long way to go. I can't wait to see what else is coming. You've got so
Yeah,
much.
well, actually, I can tell you all what else is coming. We have this project called Truth Farm. And Anna, my friend with the hoodies, and Ron Ryle, I'm sure you guys have seen his seesaws at the border. He did the pink seesaws where the kids were playing on both sides.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Anna, Ron, and I have taken it upon ourselves to create Truth Farm, which is an installation that talks about the truth surrounding the local community where we decide to go. And we actually infiltrated Trump Winery last month and created this installation. You all can look it up. It's truth.farm on the internet. And so now we're moving Truth Farm over west. And so we're going to be going to the border next and doing more installations. And it's super exciting. You know, I like really love the gallery setting and I love exhibitions, but there is nothing better than being on the ground with the community.
And you're being heard.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Not invisible. We welcome comments from anyone else if you have something, questions.
Arlene, I had a question about the language for the difference between we are not invisible and we are visible. Is there something about the language that you can explain why you wouldn't say we are not invisible in Spanish?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. So that was done very purposefully in the sense that when we, as people of color, when we speak to each other, I think we need a reminder that we are somos visibles, that we are visible. We don't need to tell each other that we are not invisible because we know that. We just need a quick reminder like, hey, remember you are visible. And when we talk to white people that are superior to us or hold more power than we do, we have to make a stronger statement and saying we are not invisible. And it's almost a reminder to them that, you know, we have visibility, but I'm reminding you that I have my visibility. So it's a different message for whoever's in front of you, depending on, you know, their hierarchy in terms of what society thinks that, you know, there's power.
Great. Thank you, Arlene. That's great.
I just wanted to say how fabulous it was to have your artwork at Pajaro Valley Arts during the Campesino show. It was the jumping off point for us. And even though not a lot of people saw the show in person, it was seen virtually, and it was really an honor to have your work in our gallery. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back with all of you and to be in conversation because I know how important the community in Watsonville is, you know, in terms of agriculture and the work that is being done. It's like a sister city to Napa. So I think, you know, even though my work is about Napa, it can exist in other places like Watsonville.
Arlene, there are several messages on the chat, and one of them is there a place to donate to help with this venture?
Yes, there is. So on the Truth Farm website, which is also in the chat, there's a place to donate if you would like to make a donation.
Wonderful.
And I think Shirley Flores Munoz has a question. You're muted, Shirley.
I'm over here talking to myself like I do 23 hours a day. But I'm so proud of you and your work. I can say that because I'm almost 72. But I just want to say thank you for being such a powerful spokesperson for farm workers, for fire workers. You know, there are people who are out there doing essential work in the world. Finally, the world is turned upside down, and we are actually looking now and seeing what has been before us for 500 years, and we have resisted seeing how essential it is to harvest food, to feed the world and feed people. Women have been doing this for centuries. Farm workers, Filipinos, Mexican Americans, African Americans, Croatians, so many different groups have contributed. I wanted to say that last night at the Santa Cruz County Real Works Film Festival, I highlighted your work.
Oh.
And talked about it, and it got great responses. People are just enjoying it and loving all of the fire and the color that you have behind it. And I particularly see that in your personality, and I see that on the easel. And of course, I saw that you on the billboard. So all of it synchronized. Please tell me, I had a couple of people last night who wanted to purchase your art. How would we do that?
Yeah, if there's any interest in art, you can go directly through my website. I'll put it in the chat. It's just Correa Valencia. It's my last name. And then you can message me through there. I'm not represented by a gallery, and so all sales are directly through me. And I really believe in community, and I really believe in everyone having access to art. So I like to think that my prices are fair because I didn't grow up with art in my house. I didn't go to an art museum until I was about 20 years old. And so I would never want to have I would never want to limit access to my work to anyone. So if you really want my work, we can work something out. And yeah, and thank you for saying that about the fire, because I really feel like I'm a fiery person.
Well, I know where you're going. You're going to the Smithsonian, and I'm going to be very excited to see them buy one of your paintings. I also want to say, please keep your ear out. We have 6 shows at the Pajaro Valley Gallery. You know that. So always be welcome to contribute your work. We appreciate you, and we want you in our community, because you're right. You are a sister community. We're harvesters, and you're harvesters, right? And our people, they live in migrancy, and so it's really excellent to have the synchronization between your work and the Pajaro Valley. So don't forget us.
No, absolutely not. I would always be honored to show my work with all of you. And the first time that my work went to the gallery, I just felt like it went home. I didn't feel like it went anywhere else, because my husband and I delivered it, and going through the streets, it just felt, like I was able to see my people there. I was able to see the people in the paintings exist in the environment, and that is so important to me. So
after I did the show last night, I was going to talk to Judy and the board members, because I think that as soon as the weather is better, we could put all that show on slides in the backyard, sitting outside at night under that beautiful sky, and we can show them on a big screen outside. It doesn't have, not super big screen, but a regular size, the old fashioned screens we used to roll out, right? And we can technically, we can do that now. We can project that, and we can bring our lawn chairs, have hot chocolate, and sit and enjoy your work that so many of us did miss. Yeah, thank you.
Valeria has a question for you, Arlene. Valeria?
Gracias por su mensaje, Arlene. I heard you mentioning that you teach. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually offered teaching jobs after grad school when I graduated last year, and I turned them down only because I really believe in my work, and I believe that there's a lot to be done, and studio time is really important to me. But since then, I've started contracting with the Boys and Girls Club and De Rosa here in Napa. And so I've been teaching, and I always offer workshops or, virtual. It's been a lot of virtual teaching, and it's been the most incredible work, even though it's virtual, to be able to work with young teenagers and kids that are, struggling with like their own identity crisis and mental health issues. And I think that for the first time, I've seen really like the power that I have as someone who has gone through so much adversity in my life and have overcome that independently, to be able to share that with these teenagers and to be able to explain to them that there's outlets in the arts, and that, that creatively that we can work through these ideas of hardship that can define us. It has been really beautiful. And so I actually, right before I was on with all of you, I was teaching the Boys and Girls Club, and we were actually making our own hoodies with a statement that empowered every individual in their own way. And so we didn't have to do the whole visible thing. Someone decided to do, what is normal. And so we're just taking my practice and then applying it to them, and they're creating their own ways of healing internally. So it's been really powerful and really, really just a life-changing experience for me.
Well, thank you. And hopefully maybe you can teach with PVA at some point.
I would love that. Let's do a workshop. I love all these ideas.
There's a question from El Castellano. Elcario Castellano.
Hey, my name's El Castellano. Arlene, I'm very impressed with your presentation. For a young lady your age, something like that I saw this afternoon on this presentation, I'm just amazed. And your English, fantastic. I've been here 86 years and you speak a better English than I do. You're an amazing person. I hope to meet you sometime. And if you ever come to Saratoga, I live here. And I'll look at your
artwork
website at Neckwood, and I'll see I'll make a contribution to your work.
Thank you so much.
Keep up the good work. I'm proud of you, and I'm glad I met you today. Okay.
Thank you so much, Arcadio. That means a lot to me. I really hope that you all know that what I do it from my heart because I care about my family. I really, at the end of the day, it comes down to my dad, and I want to make sure that I'm following his dreams and that I'm living his dreams, because we are all an extension of our ancestors. And I have the responsibility to have the language to talk to all of you and to represent my community here today and to reach every single one of you. So thank you so much for sharing that space with me.
You keep thinking that way. You're going places. I promise you that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fabulous. This is a wonderful showing, Arlene. It was an honor to witness what you're up to. Thank you. You're a beautiful person, beautiful heart. And I'm so proud of you having that relationship with your dad. That's really stunning and a huge gift. Yeah. And if those two presenters, as though they weren't enough, we are gifted for the next, with hearing from our next presenter. This is going to be truly a night to remember. Our next presenter is Lynda Watson, who we all know, and it's so exciting that she's willing to present her beautiful work with us. Lynda's well known in our community for the 25 years she spent in the jewelry and metal arts program that she started, taught in, and inspired so many students at Cabrillo College. Since the 60s, she's created and shown her own wondrous jewelry creations and her intricate drawings, and continues to do so. And coming up in October in 2022, she's going to be honored as the Master Metalsmith in the National Metal Museum in Memphis, Tennessee. It will include a large retrospective of her work and a book about her work. Tonight, she has a title for her presentation, which is Times in Place, about a group of pieces that resulted from experiences and observations from unforgettable travels. So please welcome Lynda Watson. It's so exciting to have you here, Lynda. Thank you.
Thank you. Should I go?
Yeah, your turn.
Okay. Okay. The first thing I want to do tonight is to thank Rosie and Hedwig and everyone at PVA, because PVA is really our art home in Santa Cruz County. I mean, it's really the place where most of us like to show our work and where we like to see work. And I also urge you to support the takeaways and support the gallery that way. My work, regardless of media, is about my life. Good times, bad times, new experiences, travel adventures, friendships, and celebrations. All of these are attached places in my memory, and those places suggest the images, the shapes, and the surfaces that manifest themselves in my work. From Burma to Turkey to my own backyard, life happens in places. The places I'm going to show you tonight, as Rosie said, are the pieces I'm going to show you tonight are some from some of the places that I have been on my travels. And they're about being other places than home. This is the first big piece of jewelry that I made after I retired. My work has always been about places, but now I started making work about what happened in places, actually trying to tell stories about what went on when I was away from home. This piece is called Cape Cod Remembered. Cape Cod is one of my favorite places on earth. I love the way it looks, the way it smells, the way the air feels on your skin. It's surrounded by salt water, which means that it is also surrounded by beaches, and I love beaches. And in addition to that, there are dozens and dozens of freshwater ponds on the Cape, which can be used for kayaking and other kinds of sports. For over 20 years, I spent part of every year there. This place remembers that time when I was married and teaching full-time at Cabrillo College. Next. I've always been sort of a beachcomber, but at this point I began collecting more selectively, partly for inspiration and partly because what I collect might end up in my pieces. As you can see, a lot of things ended up in this piece. Also, drawing has always been a big part of my artistic history. And I began to realize that it would be an invaluable aid if I was going to start telling stories and I needed more specific imagery. So drawing made its way into my jewelry as well. These are small drawings covered with watch crystals. This piece is called Baja with the Boys. It was planned as a pre-Yuma symposium trip in February, down the west coast of Baja, across and up the east coast to Yuma. The participants were going to be myself and Faye and 3 really good guy friends. When I was in Southern California, I found out that Faye couldn't go, so that it was going to be me and the 3 guys in 2 pickup trucks. It was cold, but beautiful. We stopped often to explore the beaches, ate lots of shellfish, drank plenty of tequila, and met a lot of interesting characters. We slept on the beach, never in a campground, and never where there was a toilet or a shower. I tried to wash my hair with salt water, and when we got to Yuma, it took the longest shower I've ever taken in order to get the waxy residue out of my hair so I could go to the pin swap. Next. This is called Megan's Birthday, Salt Spring Island. Jane and I joined Megan and her husband to celebrate one of Megan's significant birthdays at a delightful retreat in the Canadian San Juans. We had a great relaxing time, did a lot of eating, shopping, kayaking, and watching the beautiful sunsets. I found these rocks with the barnacles on them in the beach below where our place was, and I brought them home. But I realized that making a wearable piece of jewelry from these rocks was going to be a really difficult thing to do, a real challenge. And so I came up with this sort of semi-wearable bracelet. The need to tell the story and the way a piece looks is, to me, always the most important thing. It always outweighs wearability for me. It's about making art using a jewelry format. So in other words, a brooch, a bracelet, or a neck piece as art. Next. This is called Newport with Mom and Mary. In the years before my sister died, we spent as much time together as possible. She escaped the Idaho winters in a little place in Newport Beach where my mom and I often visited. We walked the beach almost every day, picking up shells, and at night we walked the boardwalk, looking at the lights and observing the nightlife in the bars and the clubs. We also occasionally walked around Balboa Island, where people left their windows open so that you could view the elegance and the Oscars on the mantles and that sort of thing. Next. This piece is called Cape Cod Solo. These pieces are all from the early 2000s. I rented a house on the bay side of Cape Cod one fall, hoping that my mom and sister could join me. They weren't able to come, and I spent the better part of 2 weeks there alone. I kayaked a lot, but I walked miles and miles every day on the beach, watching the tide move the sand in and out and drawing and photographing the resulting patterns. It may be hard to see, but that's what it is in those little drawings. It's the patterns that the tide makes in the sand. The tide on that part of Cape Cod can recede as much as a mile, leaving lots of beach area to explore. I collected rocks and shells and experienced the first big storm of the winter, which they said was a nor'easter there. It was amazing because this was the first time I had ever spent a lot of time by myself away from home. And I realized that I could be very productive and very happy in that kind of a situation. And it was really a lot of fun. Next, this piece is called Maui Birthdays. My mom turned 90, my sister turned 60, my grandnephew 10, and my family had a grand adventure at a resort in Maui. I learned from a local where the most puka shells could be found on the other side of the island at dawn at low tide. And the kids in my family went absolutely crazy. They're from Idaho and they don't see these like tropical looking fish. And so they just went crazy looking at all the fish in the aquarium, their different shapes and the different colors. So when I got home, I made this piece and I actually alloyed most of this gold. It's red and pink and yellow and green. And I cut every fish that was in the aquarium out of the out of the gold. Next. This is Alan and Gypsy's Ireland. Neighborhood artists and friends, Alan and Gypsy moved to Ireland where they could buy property and build themselves a house. I went to Kilkenny to visit and found it was such a different looking place than Santa Cruz that I was fascinated with it. Everything was, all the buildings were made of stone. The colors of the environment were gray and green. And it wasn't depressing, but it was so historic looking. And when I made this piece, I tried to make it look as historic as the place actually felt. The shells here, I mean, they look like they're ancient, are come from the beach there in Ireland, and the rocks are some that Gypsy gave me. Next. This is Cambodia's Angkor Wat. I went with some well-traveled high school friends to Southeast Asia. After riding into Angkor Wat on elephants that were provided by my friend Barbara and exploring the original site, we were able to go to a newly opened portion, which is a 4-hour drive into the jungle. We're the only ones there, and we accessed the huge ruin with the help of a native guide by the way of a long, narrow path that had been freshly cleared of landmines and spray painted with red along the edge so we would know exactly how far we could walk. It was an amazing experience because the vines and the trees were all still wrapped around the huge stone edifice. It was absolutely beautiful. Next. This piece is called Stupas in Bagan. From Cambodia, we went to Burma. And Burma is full of visual wonders, many of which could have become pieces, in my opinion. But the visual memory that followed me home was of the stupas in Bagan. Bagan has more stupas than any place in the world. There are 25,000 of them in this valley. Stupas are Buddhist monuments, and some are built by families and some are put there by other people. But the most dramatic place to see these in Bagan is either in the sunset or sunrise. And we were in a situation where we could see them both at sunrise and sunset, and it was truly fabulous. So I came home with drawings and photographs of stupas, just stupas in my mind. And I really wanted to make a piece that had a lot of stupas in it, but I couldn't quite figure it out. So this is what happened. This happens to me often. I have a habit of waking up really early and mentally making things between the time I wake up and the time I get up. I had been fretting over the stupas for a couple of days when I woke up one morning and there was this piece, just as it looks right now, finished right in front of me. And so, and this is not the first time that happened or the last. This happens to me every once in a while because I always work during that time. I always do. It's very pleasant. It's really fun. But so I just, went to the studio, drew it and made it. And that's the way it went. Next. This piece is called Copper Canyon at the Millennium. A bunch of us decided that if everything on the grid was going to blow at the Millennium, we should be someplace where it didn't make any difference. So on New Year's Eve, we were in the Copper Canyon, freezing, sitting on a log, drinking peppermint schnapps outside a Tarahumara chapel where some kind of a gathering was going on. There was one electric light bulb. And when the New Year's came, it stayed on. And we knew that clearly everything was going to be okay. Next. This is called Pink St. Petersburg, Florida. This piece I did in memory of a dear friend, Dave Pimentel, who was my dance partner at Yuma and at the metal symposiums, an excellent metalsmith who taught at Arizona State University at Tempe. At a metals conference in St. Petersburg, he insisted that I buy this whole bunch of these little square pink garnets. And it was very appropriate because everything in that town was pink. The sand, the sky, all the houses. So to remember the last time with Dave, I made this little aerial view of St. Petersburg and used the garnets to represent all of those little pink houses. Next. Skakit Beach in September. I had dear friends who had a house less than a mile from this beautiful beach, Orleanstown Beach on Cape Cod. I stayed with them many times and my kayak and my buoy collection lived at their house. This was a kayaking trip and we kayaked the rivers, the marshes, the ponds all over the Cape, as well as those on either side of this beach. I collected these shells and found them nowhere else on the Cape. We spent a lot of time there. This time I drew with white pencil on oxidized silver. You can see the black and the drawings are white. Okay, next. This is called Papel Picado en Plata. When we were in Chiapas, we went to a big festival in Chiapa del Corso. There was so much papel picado across the streets that they became like rooms with paper ceilings. I couldn't get the image off my mind, and I had to make a piece about these about the cut paper. Some of the designs I used are from Chiapas, and some of them are traditional ones. But the three you see in the second row there, I designed based on the shoes that I took with me on that trip. And the three pieces at the bottom are pieces that are from a collection that my friend Sparks has in El Rito. This is a 7-piece neck piece, and each one of those is separate. They were all cut out with a saw blade that's about the size of a human hair. Okay, next. This is called Prayer Candles in Chimula. There's another festival in Chiapas in the town of Chimula. Lots of weird goings on. Dead squirrels being thrown and a lot of different things. When I walked into the church, the floor was covered with straw and there were burning candles everywhere. A healing was taking place, which involved a sick man, a priest of some kind, a live chicken, and some Coca-Cola. I think the illness was being burped out of the man with the Coca-Cola, but I was really worried about the candles in the church. Next. Here, there, and everywhere. Smashed pennies are something I have collected. Anywhere and everywhere I find a penny machine that works. After being asked forever what I was going to do with them, I made this bracelet. piece is called Outer Banks Treasure. These shell fragments were collected on the huge sandbar that is the Outer Banks off the coast of Virginia and North Carolina. Some of them have been tumbled literally for thousands of years by the shifting sands there. They were so beautiful by themselves that I decided I was going to hide the metal behind them. And I made a chainmail neck piece, and then I attached these to the chainmail. Next. During an extensive trip around Eastern Europe, we spent some time in Prague. There's a woman who made bouquets of flowers and sold them on the street very close to where we stayed. Every morning she would appear with the most fantastic arrangements. She curled and tucked the leaves, added beads, ribbons, and other elements. So every morning I had to run down and see what she had created for that day. These pieces are not copies of the ones she made, but are arranged metal elements to make bouquets that have similar characteristics. They're brooches. Cappadocia. This was the finale to a Metalsmith dream trip through Greece and Turkey. These pieces represent the ancient structures built in the earth and used by people of many cultures to pass through the area for generations. They're really interesting when you walk through and explore them from the ground, but we were able to see them in a fantastic way from hot air balloon that was presented to us by our friends who were traveling with us. Next. This is called Hawaiian Petroglyphs. This bracelet is a game. The petroglyphs are recessed, and the object is to tilt the bracelet in such a way that the petroglyphs get filled with black sand. When we were on the Big Island, we saw petroglyphs every day for a few too many days. Okay, next. Now I'm going to show you 3 of these pieces, and these pieces, there are 6 of them. I'm only going to show you 3. Are from accumulated trips to Hawaii's arboretums, gardens, and parks over a number of trips and years. I took photographs, made drawings, and carried home mental pictures of a huge variety of tropical plants that are found there. Next. I was anxious to use needle felted natural merino wool for the flowers and oxidized silver for the foliage on these pendants. But when I finished the first pendant, I realized that it really needed some context in order to make it look like what it really was. So next. So I did the drawings and designed a way to attach the pendant so it could be removed for wearing and then put back onto the drawing when you weren't wearing it. The cord for the pendant is attached inside the cradle frame. Next. One night, this is called Costa Rica. One night after midnight, a local guide took us to see the baby turtles hatch and make their way to the water on a beach that was closed to the public on the northwest coast of Costa Rica. These shells were plentiful on that beach and most of the other beaches in that area, and I collected quite a few of them. Mine were confiscated at the airport, and my friend Megan sent me hers, and I made this piece from them. Next. This is called Shopping in Mexico. Several years ago, we went to Oaxaca for Day of the Dead. The celebrations were absolutely wonderful, but the shopping was great too. This bracelet celebrates some of my purchases from that trip. The charms are made with precious metal clay, and that was the first time I'd ever used that material. So perhaps it's time for me to say, I use the materials and processes that give me the results I desire. The idea always drives the choice, and because of this, I found it necessary to explore, learn, and use many different processes, techniques, and materials over the years. Next. We heard that there was a really nice hot spring between McCall and Boise, Idaho. This is called Gold Fork, Idaho. We followed the signs for many miles on a dirt road only to find that the hot spring was closed for 1 day only, and that was the day we were there for maintenance. There was, however, a really sort of amazing fence along the dirt road. Whoever built it had used every vertical thing imaginable for fence posts. There was pipe, rebar, curtain rods, as well as branches and rolled chicken wire. When I came home, I found vertical remnants from jewelry I'd made in the past and combined them in a bracelet so that it looks like a fence. Next. There's 3 pieces here. They're called Pocosin Outer Banks. I was invited to, this was last year. These pieces are fairly recent. I was invited to a residency called Smitten at Pocosin Art Center in North Carolina, which gave me a chance again to visit the Outer Banks and find more of these wonderful shell fragments. This time I combined them with enameled drawings of plant life from the nearby swampy waterways. And next, these pieces are a great way for me to remember a wonderful week with metalsmiths from all over the country when we had absolutely nothing to do next but sit in the studio and work. It was great. All right, next. This is the last piece. This is called Looking Back. I made this neck piece after being asked what I plan to wear to my museum opening in Memphis. My show and the book will be called Looking Back. And this piece remembers making some of the pieces that I've shared with you tonight. So this is just a few of the pieces that I've done over the last 20 years. And you need to understand that there are series of pieces in between these pieces. I've been to an awful lot of wonderful places that I never made pieces about. But anyway, so basically that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynda.
Wonderful. Wow.
Thank you, Lynda. That was amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Each one of those pieces is such a treasure.
They're fun. They're really fun to make.
Lynda is a treasure.
Back all the memories of places, you know, so.
Yeah, I can see heart in each one of them.
Yeah.
Any more comments for Lynda?
Lynda, I love your attention to detail in every single one of the pieces. I think you have to be a little crazy to do all of that. And I love it.
It's really fun, but the thing is, because I draw and because I love doing that kind of thing, it's real easy to get a lot of detail involved with things. You know, I can add to basic shapes and stuff by.
That's amazing. How? My question for you is, I'm like fascinated by the papel picado necklace pieces. How long? You said that you were cutting those with something that was really thin. How long did those take?
The piece probably, I mean, it was hours and hours and hours. I had to drill through it's 24 gauge sterling. And I had to drill through it first and then put a saw blade through it and then saw each one of those pieces out with a jeweler's saw. And I used what is called a 6/0 blade, which is a very, very small jeweler's saw blade. And I mean, I did this over a period of probably a month and worked every day a lot. But it was fun. I love to saw. So, you know, what can I say?
And some of those, there's like 80 holes. I mean, they're like, the detail is amazing.
There are a lot of holes, and that means, you know, putting the saw blade in and getting the blade in the saw frame and then sawing. But it's fun. I love the technology involved with making metal work. I mean, that's really, you know, I've always loved that. So.
Lynda, you're amazing. Awesome awesome work.
Thank
Fantastic.
You. Thank you.
Hey, Lynda, can you talk just a minute about this honor that is being given to you in 2022 and the book that you are making?
Yeah, it really is. I'm very excited about it because most of the people I know who've gotten this are people who teach at universities, run big programs and stuff like that. And of course, I was at Carrillo for my whole, you know, my whole career. This is, they select one person each year to be master metalsmith at the Metals Museum, which is in Memphis, Tennessee. And it's a beautiful museum on the Mississippi River, which shows nothing but metalwork. And that's everything from the finest, you know, like gold and gems and that sort of thing, to blacksmithing. And they have a wonderful smithy there where they have interns that come in and work all the time. And so they select one person every year to be the master metalsmith. And for some reason, they selected me for next year. And so I get to have a show, and they want about, I think there's going to be about 80 pieces, and they're going to actually let me use drawings too. So I can, and that's really exciting because I love the idea of both.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're going to let me use both. And as a part of it, they do a catalog. And so we're making it into a book. And so I'm working on that now. I just did caption all day. So.
And some of her drawings are really big, and they're like so detailed and realistic. You can see them on her website. And so it's going to be fun to see the juxtaposition of these tiny jewelry with these beautiful big drawings that are like super detailed. Amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a very nice thing, and I really appreciate it. I mean, I think it's wonderful. The metals community has been very, very supportive. So,
Lynda, you deserve it.
Yes.
Your work deserves to be there.
Really good choice on their part.
Thank you so much.
They're lucky to have
Incredible
you.
work.
They are lucky to have you.
Incredible work.
all right, thank you, everybody.
Road trip to Memphis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Lynda, can we get your website? Can you tell us where to go to see your stuff, your website?
What now?
Can you tell us where to go for your website so we can?
Oh, it's Lynda Watson Art.
Great.
And LYDA.
Yeah, it's Lynda with a Y.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much, Lynda. What a show. This was such a privilege.
This is great. Everyone was.
It was a great, this whole evening was such a show. What all three of you, Wendy and Arlene and Lynda, thank you huge for just inspiring us over and over again. It was terrific. Thank
Wonderful
you.
presentation.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie.
Very
Thank you.
inspiring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Rosie.
All of the artists, you guys have just blown my mind.
Yes.
Arlene and Wendy and Lynda, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
It's been such a privilege.
You hit it out of the park tonight, Rosie.
Oh,
Good.
they did. They sure did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Is
What
there a
an
place that we can,
Thank
Is
you all
there-
for coming and being here to support us. This was really great.
is there a place we can see the recording again? I mean, it was really an amazing night.
Yes, the recording will be put on our website and on YouTube. So keep an
Great.
eye on the website, pvart.org.
pvarts.org.
Great. Thank you.